Why do you think we went from having $1 billion movies in 2019 to only $1 billion movie in the 2020s with COVID behind us? Can we get more billion-dollar movies? It's, you know, we've kind of talked about on here a number of times, but there was so much disruption to the marketplace in a very short period of time. And it all started to go down in 2020. So you're contrasting a couple of different things at once. The last decade was just kind of a hot run for billion-dollar films, where you look at the number of billion-dollar films that have ever come out, and they're all movies from the last decade. Like, it was just became this very normal thing that wasn't true before that, and it hasn't been true since. And for whatever reason, people just loved going to go see big franchise films, Disney live action remakes, comic book movies, like all of it just was red hot. And some of it was that, you know, Disney had a pretty good streak there with Pixar and the MCU, and they got Star Wars that didn't end up going great, but it started very exciting. So there's just a lot of things that were kind of crescendoing. And 2019 was that crescendo of all of these big, gigantic movies. In 2019, huge percentage of those were Disney movies, and it was the culmination of 3 phases of the MCU. It was the culmination of Star Wars. It was 2 different Disney live-action remakes of Renaissance-era films that, you know, were my generation. So now I'm grown up, so it's nostalgia for me, but it's a movie for my kids to watch, so it's cross-generational. All this happens 2019. So then what has happened since then? Well, of course, COVID. COVID happens, and it, you know, rocks the industry, and it pivots heavily towards streaming. What happens at the end of 2019? Disney Plus is launched. What also has happened? HBO Max and expansion of, you know, Peacock, Paramount Plus being an extension of CBS. And so there's all of these streaming platforms now. And because of COVID, the theatrical window shrinks. And people start getting more used to watching movies at home. They get used to them dropping on streaming a little bit sooner. And you have a scenario where there's dramatically more competition than even that there was 5 years ago, where if you wanted Marvel in 2019, you went to the movies. Like, I guess you had a little Marvel Netflix, but that was more mature, it was different. And you had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Otherwise, you're going to the movies. But even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it was network television Marvel. And now you can get Stars of Avengers on Disney Plus. And we're dropping all of these movies, all these TV shows, plus still doing all the movies. And every streaming platform is trying to get their Rings of Power. We're spending $1 billion for Lord of the Rings. And we're going to do a Penguin TV show. And like everyone is throwing money, trying to get big IPs while not cutting back the number of blockbusters they're putting out. So now there's so much noise, so much stuff out there. And just because you're throwing more money at it doesn't mean there's more good ideas. It doesn't mean that there's more great storytellers. That doesn't mean the infrastructure has been developed to be able to crank out content at that level and maintain quality. So you just water it all down. So these TV shows aren't quite as good. People are watching things in different places, and you diminish your brands. All of the brands, everything is devalued because there's just too much of everything out there while COVID is taking place. And then last year, because COVID takes place, it disrupts all of this stuff happening. People are used to watching at home. And then you kind of get into then what happened last year, where it was like, there was just too many. There's so many movies coming out every single week that they're like canceling each other out. People only have so much money to go to the theater. You can't see if you put out 8 movies that need to make $1 billion in a month. That doesn't mean 8 movies are going to make $1 billion that month. People only have so much money to go to the theater. They only have so much time to go to the theater. And there's all these options at home that they're already paying for on streaming. Then adding to that, last year there was then the writer's strike and the actor's strike. So then going into this year, there was a disruption to the creation of movies. The trickle down of COVID was the economy was pretty good 5 years ago. We had a good run on the economy, and then COVID happens and people lose their jobs, turns everything upside down, places go out of business, the government throws money into sends relief checks to people, throws money out there. Well, what happens when you print money to people? Inflation takes place. And so despite the fact that right now the stock market is the highest it's ever been, everything is more expensive than it's ever been as well. So you might be making more money, but it gets you a lot less. Thus, people have less money to spend at the theater. Like all this stuff, like that, so much has happened in the last 5 years. It's not normal at all how much the world has been shaken and an industry has been shaken as has taken place in the last 5 years. And when all of that happens, all of a sudden you go from like an inflated number of billion-dollar films like we had in 2019 to a deflated number now where it's like, that's kind of weird how few movies are able to cut through. And I think some of it is realizing that they never should have been counting on that many billion-dollar films. And then they tried to just maintain that. And so it became really obvious, oh, they're not pulling it off because they just spent a lot of money on that Fast and the Furious movie that didn't make $1 billion. And they spent a lot of money on this that didn't make $1 billion. And I think they're maybe starting to figure that out now, that maybe you don't need to spend $300 million on everything, and not everything needs 10 movies, and not every franchise can go on forever. But they're only slowly starting to figure all of that out.
Most of these clips are pulled from my Patreon live streams. I do about 6 live streams every single month. For $2 per month, $20 per year, you can get access to all the exclusive videos and live streams. For $5 per month, you get your name on my end card. At the top tier, you get a 30-minute video chat with me each month. The link down below in the description has more information.